The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched wide like a massive arena. 847 different alien species sat in their floating chairs, all looking down at the center stage. The air smelled like metal and strange chemicals, from so many different worlds mixing together. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood alone in the middle of it all. She was human, which meant most of the aliens around her thought she was not very important. Humans were useful, yes. They fixed things. They fought wars, they solved problems. But they were young, only 300 years in space. The other species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Chen looked up at the council leader, a tall blue creature called Vex 9. His species, the Altarians, had been in charge of the council for over 2,000 years. Next, to him sat the other senior species, the big powerful aliens who made all the rules. Human representative, Vex 9 said, his voice echoing through the hall. You have read the new Civilization Compliance Directive. Your species will give up 12 of your colony worlds. These worlds will be given to species who deserve them more. You will also provide 50,000 human workers to serve on our projects. This is not a request. The other aliens nodded and made clicking sounds that meant they agreed. This was normal. The council would demand something from the younger species, and those species would have to say yes. That was how it had always worked. But Chen did not look scared or sad. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small data pad. She placed it on the podium in front of her. 300 years ago, Chen said, her voice calm and clear, humanity joined this council. We thought it would be good for everyone. We thought we would learn from older, wiser species. Some aliens laughed. The idea that humans could teach anyone anything was funny to them. We have served this council well, Chen continued. Human ships patrol your borders. Human engineers built and maintain 60% of your space stations. Human diplomats solve your trade disputes. Human soldiers fight your wars. When the Hive Collective attacked 5 years ago, who stopped them? Humans. When the trade routes collapsed, who fixed them? Humans. When your species fight each other, who makes peace? Humans. Vex 9 waved a hand. Yes, humans are useful. This is why we keep you around. Now accept the directive and sit down. Chen smiled. It was not a happy smile. We have been useful to you, but what have you been to us? You take our worlds when you want them. You take our people when you need workers. You make us fight your wars, then ignore us when making peace. You call us junior partners, but you treat us like servants. You are junior partners, said Counselor Thex, a large red alien with 4 arms. You have been in space for only 3 centuries. We have been here for millennia. Know your place. Our place, Chen said, and now her voice was getting louder. Let me tell you about our place. In the last 50 years, humans have stopped 4 major wars, built the navigation systems that keep your ships from getting lost, and created the medical treatments that saved millions of your people. But when we ask for fair treatment, you laugh at us. The hall was getting quiet now. Some aliens were starting to look worried. This was not how these meetings usually went. Young species were supposed to be grateful and quiet. Chen touched the data pad, and a hologram appeared above it. It showed a document with official seals from every human world. Today, I bring you humanity's answer to your Civilization Compliance Directive. She picked up the data pad and held it high. By unanimous vote of all human colonies and Earth itself, humanity hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council. We invoke Article 15 of the Founding Charter, peaceful separation. The hall exploded with noise. Aliens were shouting, clicking, and making all kinds of sounds. Some were laughing because they thought this was a joke. Some were angry because no one had ever done this before. Some were scared because they were starting to understand what this meant. Vex 9 slammed his staff on the floor to make noise. Silence. This is impossible. No species has ever left the council. Article 15 says any member can leave if they give proper notice and have good reasons, Chen said. We have both. Our reasons are simple. We are tired of being treated like children who should be grateful for scraps from your table. You cannot survive without us, Thex shouted. You need our technology, our trade routes, our protection. Chen's smile got bigger. Your technology? Most of your advanced systems were rebuilt by human engineers because the original versions did not work properly. Your trade routes? Human ships guard them. Your protection? Human soldiers provide it. She pressed another button on the datapad. Across the galaxy, every human ship, space station, and colony received the same message. At the same time, the message was simple. Pack up. We are going home. You are bluffing, Vex 9 said, but his voice was not as confident now. You will lose everything. Your colonies will fail without council support. Your people will starve. Maybe, Chen said. But we would rather fail on our own than succeed as your servants. We did not crawl out of caves and reach for the stars just to spend forever bowing to species who think they are better than us. She looked around the hall, making eye contact with aliens from dozens of different worlds. Many of them were from smaller, younger species like humanity. They looked scared but also interested. For 300 years you have told us we were lucky to be here, that we should be grateful for your wisdom and guidance. Today we say thank you for the lesson. You taught us that respect is not given, it must be taken. You taught us that, in this galaxy, only the strong survive. We are about to show you how well we learned. Chen started walking toward the exit. As she moved, her datapad beeped with incoming messages. The first reports were already coming in. Human ships were powering up engines. Human colonists were loading transport vessels. Human engineers were downloading data and wiping computer systems. Wait, Vex 9 called after her. You cannot do this. The council will not allow it. Chen stopped and turned around. The council will allow it because the council has no choice. We are not your prisoners. We never were. We just forgot that for a while. You will be back. Vex shouted. Within a year you will come crawling back begging us to take you in. Perhaps, Chen said. But I do not think so. You see, you made one big mistake. You kept us busy with your problems for so long that you forgot to ask yourselves a simple question. What happens if the humans stop helping us and start helping themselves instead? She walked out of the hall, leaving 846 alien species staring at each other in shock. For the first time in galactic history, someone had said no to the council and walked away. The exodus had begun. 6 weeks had passed since Ambassador Chen walked out of the council chambers. The galaxy was watching something that had never happened before in recorded history. Every human ship, from tiny cargo haulers to massive battleships, was moving toward human space. On the mining world of Zirion Prime, Director James Walsh stood in his office, looking out at the busy spaceport. For 15 years, this place had been his home. He had turned a failing mining operation into one of the most productive in the galaxy. Now he was packing his belongings into a single bag. The new director, a tall green alien called Keth 7, stood behind him. Keth 7 was from the Zentari species, one of the council's senior members. He seemed confident and slightly annoyed. I still do not understand why you insist on leaving, Keth 7 said. This operation needs experienced leadership. Stay and we will give you a good salary. Walsh turned around and smiled. That is very kind of you. But I have my orders. All humans are going home. Orders from whom? Your government has no authority here anymore. Walsh picked up a data tablet and handed it to Keth 7. This contains all the official records, safety procedures, and basic operational data. Everything you need to keep the mines running. Keth 7 looked through the tablet, frowning. These are just basic reports. Where are the detailed mineral surveys? The location data for the productive veins? The technical specifications for the deep extraction equipment? Oh, those, Walsh said, still smiling. Those are proprietary human technology and data. Trade secrets, you understand. We cannot leave those behind. But without that information, we cannot maintain production levels. Walsh shrugged. You are a senior species. You have been mining asteroids for thousands of years. I am sure you will figure it out. As Walsh walked toward the shuttle pad, he could hear Keth 7 shouting behind him. The human mining teams had already left, taking with them detailed knowledge of every productive mineral vein on the planet. The Zentari would eventually figure out how to mine the world properly, but it might take years, and production would drop by 80% in the meantime. Similar scenes were happening across the galaxy. On the trade station New Geneva, human financial officers handed over basic accounting records to their alien replacements. But somehow, the complex algorithms that managed interspecies currency exchange had become corrupted during the data transfer. Without those systems, trade between different alien species became much more difficult and expensive. On the border world of Sanctuary, Admiral Lisa Martinez met with General Vorth, a four-armed Krellian who would be taking over defense of the TU sector. Vorth was an experienced military officer, but he looked worried. "Your ships are really leaving?" Vorth asked. "All of them," Martinez replied. "My orders are clear, but the Hive Collective has been sending scout ships through this area. Without your patrol routes and early warning systems, we will be blind." Martinez nodded. "That does sound like a problem. Here are the basic star charts for this sector. I am sure your navigation teams can fill in the details." She handed him a standard data chip. Vorth looked at it and frowned. "These are tourist-level charts. Where are the detailed patrol routes? The sensor network access codes? The intelligence reports on Hive movement patterns?" "Sorry," Martinez said. "That information belongs to Earth Fleet. We cannot leave classified military data behind." As her ships prepared to leave, Martinez knew what this meant. The humans had spent decades mapping every asteroid, every hidden route, every safe harbor in the sector. They knew where enemies like to hide, where pirates set up bases, and where to position sensors for maximum coverage. Without that knowledge, the aliens would be trying to defend a sector they barely understood. Back on Earth, President Elena Rodriguez stood in the Global Defense Command Center, watching screens that showed human ships from across the galaxy. Thousands of vessels were converging on human space. Not just military ships, but cargo haulers, research vessels, colony transports, and even small private ships whose owners had decided to come home. "Status report," she said. General Harrison, her military advisor, pulled up a holographic display. 93% of our people have started the journey home. We are having some delays in the outer rim, but those ships should be moving within a few days." "Any resistance from the Council?" "Some angry messages, a few threats, but no military action yet. I think they still believe this is a bluff." Rodriguez nodded. "What about our colonies?" "The evacuation colonies are being abandoned, as planned. But our major worlds, Mars, Titan, New Earth, the Europa stations, those are staying put. We are not giving up our core territory." "Good. And our new projects?" Harrison smiled. "The engineering teams on Titan have been working around the clock. The new ship designs are coming along faster than expected. Turns out when you do not have to follow Council safety regulations and design standards, you can build things much more efficiently." On the Council homeworld of Altair Prime, Vex 9 stood in his private office reading reports from across the galaxy. Each report was worse than the last. Production was falling on dozens of worlds. Trade routes were becoming dangerous without human patrols. Several smaller species were asking uncomfortable questions about why they should continue supporting a council that could not protect them. His assistant, a nervous creature called Dex 4, entered the room. "Sir, we have received another request for negotiation from the human territories." "What do they want now?" They do not want anything. Sir, they are offering to sell us navigation data and technical support for a price." Vex 9 looked up sharply. "They want to sell us our own information?" "It is not our information, sir. It was developed by human teams using human methods. Technically, it belongs to them. This is ridiculous. Send a message to their leadership. Tell them we are willing to discuss their return to the Council." "I already did, sir. They said they are not interested in returning. They said, and I quote, 'We are doing just fine on our own, thank you.'" Vex 9 walked to his window and looked out at the great city of Altair Prime. For 2,000 years, his species had been the leaders of galactic civilization. They had built this council, created order among the stars, and guided younger species toward prosperity. The idea that humans could just leave and survive on their own was impossible. But the reports kept coming in. Human colonies were not collapsing. Human ships were not being destroyed by pirates or hostile aliens. Instead, the humans seemed to be thriving. There were reports of new construction projects, new colonies being established, and human ships exploring regions that the Council had never bothered to visit. Most disturbing of all, other species were taking notice. Some of the smaller Council members, species that had always been treated as junior partners, much like the humans, were quietly establishing trade relationships with humanity. They were not leaving the Council yet, but they were clearly testing their options. Councillor Thex burst into the office without knocking. "Vex 9, we have a problem. The Vegan Republic just signed a trade agreement with the humans." "What kind of agreement?" "Rare metals for technology. The humans offered them manufacturing techniques that we have been refusing to share for centuries." Vex 9 felt a cold feeling in his stomach. The humans were not just leaving, they were competing. And they were offering smaller species the one thing the Council had always denied them: respect and fair treatment. "How long before they come crawling back?" Thex asked. Vex 9 looked out the window again. In the distance he could see a small human cargo ship leaving the spaceport. For 3 centuries, human ships had been a common sight in Council space. Now they were becoming rare. "I do not think they are coming back," he said quietly. The Exodus was not just changing the balance of power in the galaxy, it was changing the galaxy itself. 6 months after the human Exodus began, the first real test came from an unexpected direction. The Hive Collective, a group of insect-like aliens that lived at the edge of known space, had been quiet for years. The Council had fought them before, but human peacekeepers and clever diplomacy had kept them contained. Now the Hive was moving again. Admiral Crost of the Zentari fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching long-range sensors. Dozens of Hive ships were crossing into Council territory, moving toward the outer colonies. This should have been a routine response. Send in the patrol fleets, establish a defensive line, call for backup if needed. But nothing was routine anymore. "Communications. Contact the human patrol ships in Sector 7, Crost ordered. His communications officer, a young Zentari named Vex 12, looked confused. "Sir, there are no human patrol ships in Sector 7 anymore. They all left 3 months ago." Crost felt his stomach drop. For decades, human ships had been the backbone of border security. They knew the patrol routes, the hiding spots, the tactics that worked against Hive ships. Without them, the Council fleet was working blind. "Then contact the human liaison officers attached to our fleet," he said. "Sir, the last human officers departed 2 weeks ago. We have no human staff anywhere in the fleet." This was becoming a nightmare. Crost had commanded mixed fleets before, with ships from 6 or 7 different species working together. The humans had always been the translators, the coordinators, the ones who made sure everyone understood the battle plan. Without them, giving orders to a diverse fleet was like trying to conduct an orchestra where half the musicians spoke different languages. The battle went as badly as expected. The Zentari ships attacked from the north while the Krellian ships attacked from the south. But the Krellian commanders could not understand the Zentari tactical signals, and the Zentari pilots could not read Krellian navigation data. 2 friendly ships collided while trying to coordinate their movements. A Krellian destroyer, accidentally, fired on a Zentari cruiser because their weapon systems were not properly synchronized. Meanwhile, the Hive ships moved through the chaos like a knife through water. They had fought Council fleets before and learned to exploit exactly this kind of confusion. By the end of the day, the Hive had destroyed 8 Council ships and captured 2 entire colonies. The news reached the Council homeworld within hours, and panic began to spread. On the trade world of Meridian, Dock Supervisor Geth 9 was dealing with his own crisis. 3 cargo ships had arrived with food shipments for the overcrowded planet, but something was wrong. The refrigeration units on all 3 ships had failed during transit, leaving millions of tons of food spoiled and worthless. "How did this happen?" Geth 9 demanded, standing in the stinking cargo bay of the first ship. The ship's captain, a lizard-like alien called Sisk, looked embarrassed. The refrigeration system is human-designed, very efficient but also very complicated. When it started making warning sounds, we did not know how to fix it. Did you not have maintenance manuals? We had the basic operation manual, but the repair procedures were classified as proprietary human technology. We were not allowed to have them. Geth 9 wanted to scream. For years, human engineers had maintained the complex systems that kept food fresh during long space journeys. The aliens had been happy to let them handle the technical details. Now those same aliens were discovering that they did not actually understand how their own equipment worked. Similar problems were erupting across the galaxy. On the research station Deep Space 7, the main computer network crashed when nobody could figure out how to perform routine maintenance that human technicians had always handled. On the industrial world of Forge, production lines shut down when human-designed quality control systems started showing error messages that nobody could read. Even worse, the Galactic communication network was starting to fail. For centuries, humans had built and maintained the complex relay stations that allowed instant communication between star systems. The aliens had the basic technical knowledge to keep the systems running, but they did not understand the subtle adjustments and optimizations that human engineers made every day. Counselor Vex 9 called an emergency session of the Senior Council members. The Great Hall felt empty now. Several species had reduced their representation, claiming budget problems. The truth was that without human ships providing safe transport, many council members were afraid to travel. The situation is becoming serious, Vex 9 announced. The hive attacks, the equipment failures, the communication breakdowns. We must take action. What kind of action? Asked Vex. We cannot force the humans to return. We can negotiate, suggested Counselor Yorth of the Vegan Republic. Offer them better terms, more autonomy, perhaps representation on the Senior Council. Several older council members made sounds of disgust. The idea of treating humans as equals was still hard for them to accept. Before we negotiate, said Counselor Prime Zek 1 of the Altarians, we should see how badly they are suffering without us. Surely they are having their own problems. Vex 9 activated a holographic display showing intelligence reports from human space. What they saw was shocking. Far from collapsing, human territories were thriving. Construction projects were visible on every major human world. New colonies were being established at a rapid pace. Most disturbing of all, human ships were ranging far beyond their traditional borders, exploring star systems that the Council had never bothered to visit. They seemed to be doing well, Yorth observed. This cannot be accurate, Zek 1 said. How can they survive without our trade networks, our technology, our support? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dex 4, Vex 9's assistant, cleared his throat nervously. Sir, I have been monitoring human communications. They are still using our trade networks as customers. They are buying raw materials and selling finished goods. Their profits have increased by 300% since they left the Council. How is that possible? Well, sir, when they were Council members, they had to follow Council trade regulations. They had to sell goods at Council-approved prices and give a percentage of their profits to the Council treasury. Now they can charge whatever the market will bear. The Council members stared at each other in shock. For centuries, they had been skimming profits from human trade, telling themselves they were providing valuable services in return. Now they were realizing that the humans had been making them rich while staying relatively poor themselves. There is more, Dex 4 continued. 17 non-council species have established trade relationships with humanity in the past 4 months. The humans are offering them technology transfers, fair trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. Mutual defense, Vex asked. The humans have offered to provide military protection for smaller species that feel threatened by larger powers. The implication was clear. The humans were not just leaving the Council. They were building their own power base. Species that had been ignored or exploited by the Council were finding a new ally, one that treated them with respect and offered them real benefits. Counselor Jex 5 of the Epsilon Republic spoke up. He represented one of the smaller Council species and he looked worried. Perhaps it is time to reconsider our approach to species management. If the humans can offer better terms to potential allies, maybe we should improve our own terms. The senior council members turned to stare at him with expressions of disbelief. The idea that they should compete for the loyalty of smaller species was revolutionary. The council has maintained order for thousands of years, Zek-1 said coldly. We will not change our fundamental principles because one species had a temper tantrum. But even as he spoke, Zek-1 could see doubt in the eyes of the other council members. The humans had not had a temper tantrum. They had made a calculated decision, and that decision was working. Over the following weeks, the situation continued to deteriorate. The Hive Collective launched more attacks, meeting less and less organized resistance. Equipment failures cascaded across council space as complex systems broke down without human maintenance. Trade began to suffer as shipping routes became dangerous and unreliable. Most troubling of all, more species began to question their relationship with the council. If humans could thrive on their own, why couldn't others? The galaxy was changing and the council was discovering that they were not as essential as they had believed. For thousands of years they had told themselves that younger species needed their guidance and protection. Now they were learning that what those species really needed was respect and fair treatment, things the council had never provided. The humans had walked away, and in doing so, they had started something that could not be stopped. 2 years had passed since humanity left the council, and the galaxy was falling apart. Admiral Crost stood in the ruins of what had been Research Station Omega-7, one of the council's most important scientific facilities. Hive attack ships had destroyed it 3 days ago, and nobody had been able to stop them. The station's defenses had failed when the automated systems crashed. The emergency response fleet had arrived 6 hours late due to navigation errors, and the evacuation had turned into a disaster when different species rescue ships could not coordinate their efforts. 40,000 beings had died. It was the worst military defeat in council history. How many ships did we lose trying to defend this place? Crost asked his aide. 12 destroyers, 6 cruisers, and the battleship Eternal Glory, came the reply. Most were destroyed by friendly fire or navigation accidents. Crost closed his eyes. In the old days, human tactical officers would have coordinated the defense. Human engineers would have kept the automated systems running. Human rescue specialists would have organized the evacuation. Now the council was discovering that they had never really learned how to fight wars. They had just been giving orders while humans did the actual work. The Hive Collective was not the only threat. 3 separate wars had broken out between council member species in the past year. The Zentari and the Krellians were fighting over mining rights in the Vega system. The Epsilon Republic was having a border dispute with the Tau Confederacy. The Altarian trade guilds were sabotaging each other's shipping routes. In the past, human diplomats would have mediated these disputes. Human peacekeepers would have kept the fighting from spreading. But now, there were no humans to maintain order, and the council's own diplomatic efforts were failing badly. On the council homeworld, emergency sessions were being held every day. The Great Hall was half empty. Many species had simply stopped sending representatives. Some claimed they could not afford the travel costs now that human ships were no longer providing safe, cheap transport. Others admitted they saw no point in attending meetings where nothing useful ever got decided. Vex-9 stood at his podium, looking out at the scattered alien representatives. "We face the greatest crisis in galactic history," he announced. "The Hive Collective has captured 17 star systems. Our member species are fighting each other. Our infrastructure is collapsing. We must take decisive action." "What action?" called out Councillor Yorth. "We have tried negotiating with the humans. They ignored our messages." "We have tried economic pressure," added Thex. "But they are not dependent on our trade anymore." Zek-1 stood up slowly. As the senior-most council member, his words carried weight. "There is one option we have not tried: military action." The hall went quiet. Several aliens made nervous sounds. "You mean invade human space?" asked Yorth. "I mean restore order," Zek-1 replied. "The humans have forgotten their place in the galactic community. They need to be reminded." that they cannot simply walk away from their responsibilities. Crost, who had been invited to the session as a military advisor, stood up. With respect, Counselor, our military forces are not in good condition. We have been losing battles against the Hive. Our coordination is poor. Our equipment keeps failing. Then, we will fix those problems by bringing back the people who understand our systems, Zek 1 said firmly. The humans built our infrastructure, trained our personnel, and developed our tactics. They will return and resume their duties. And if they refuse? Zek 1's expression was cold. Then we will make them understand that refusal is not an option. 3 weeks later, the largest military fleet in Council history assembled at the edge of human space. Over 800 ships from dozens of different species, commanded by Admiral Crost and carrying invasion forces from every major Council military. The plan was simple. Overwhelm human defenses with superior numbers, occupy their major worlds and force their leadership to surrender. Once humanity was back under Council authority, order could be restored to the galaxy. Crost stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at tactical displays showing human space. Intelligence reports said the humans had only about 200 ships in their entire fleet, mostly converted civilian vessels with basic weapons. The Council force outnumbered them 4-1 and had much heavier firepower. Sir, his communications officer reported, we are receiving a transmission from the Human Border Patrol. Put it on screen. The image that appeared showed a human officer sitting calmly in what looked like the bridge of a small patrol ship. The officer was a woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Her uniform was simple but clean, and she wore no rank insignia that Crost recognized. I am Commander Sarah Martinez of the Human Colonial Defense Force, she said. You are currently trespassing in sovereign human space. Please state your business. Crost stepped forward. I am Admiral Crost, commanding the Council Enforcement Fleet. By order of the Galactic Council, all human forces will stand down and prepare to receive occupation troops. Humanity's illegal withdrawal from the Council is hereby declared null and void. Martinez listened to this with no expression on her face. When Crost finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, not a friendly smile, but the kind of smile a teacher might give to a student who had just said something very foolish. Admiral Crost, she said, I have been authorized by the Human Colonial Alliance to deliver the following message. You are trespassing in sovereign human space. Turn around now, or be turned around. Crost almost laughed. This woman was commanding a single small ship against his massive fleet, and she was making threats? Commander Martinez, you have 5 minutes to surrender before we begin our advance. Admiral, Martinez replied, you have 30 seconds to begin your retreat before we begin ours. The transmission ended. Crost looked around his bridge at the confused faces of his alien crew. Did the humans really think they could fight an entire council, fleet with their few converted cargo ships? Sir, his sensor officer called out, I am detecting new contacts. Multiple ships coming out of hyperspace. The tactical display lit up with new signals. Ships were appearing all around the Council fleet. Not just a few ships, but hundreds of them. Sleek, fast vessels that moved with precision and coordination the Council fleet could never match. How many ships? Crost asked, his voice getting quiet. Still counting, sir, at least 600 so far. No, wait, 800. Still more coming in. Crost stared at the display in shock. Intelligence had said the humans only had 200 ships. Where had all these vessels come from? His communications officer spoke up. Sir, we are receiving another transmission from Commander Martinez. Martinez appeared on screen again, but now she was not alone. Behind her, Crost could see other human officers working at control stations that looked far more advanced than anything on his own bridge. Admiral Crost, Martinez said, let me introduce you to the real Human Colonial Defense Force. For 2 years, we have been building ships designed with 300 years of accumulated galactic technology, but without the restrictions and safety regulations that limited us when we were council members. Our ships are faster than yours, more maneuverable than yours, and much better armed than yours. As if to prove her point, the human ships began moving into attack formation with a speed and precision that made Krost's mixed fleet look clumsy by comparison. More importantly, Martinez continued, these ships are all crewed by humans who spent decades fighting your wars, learning your tactics and studying your weaknesses. We know exactly how your ships work, exactly how your commanders think, and exactly how to beat you. Krost looked at his own tactical display. His fleet was huge, but it was also slow, poorly coordinated, and now completely surrounded. The human ships were moving like a pack of hunting animals, cutting off escape routes and positioning themselves for maximum advantage. You have one chance, Martinez said. Leave now, and we will let you go. Stay, and we will demonstrate why. Humanity survived for millions of years on a world full of predators before we ever reached space. For a moment, Krost considered fighting. His ships still outnumbered the humans, and Council pride demanded that they not retreat in the face of threats from a species they had always considered inferior. Then his sensor officer made a sound of alarm. Sir, the human ships are powering weapons. Energy signatures are off the charts. These are not converted civilian vessels. Krost looked at the tactical display again. The human formation was perfect. Every Council ship was covered by at least 3 human vessels, and the humans held all the strategic positions. If fighting started, it would not be a battle. It would be a massacre. Signal the fleet, Krost said quietly. We are withdrawing. As the Council fleet began its humiliating retreat, Martinez appeared on screen one more time. Admiral Krost, she said, when you report back to the Council, please give them this message from humanity. We tried being your junior partners. We tried being grateful for your wisdom and guidance. Now, we are going to try being your equals. Whether you like it or not, the Council fleet limped home in defeat, and word of their humiliation spread across the galaxy within days. The mighty Council, rulers of civilization for thousands of years, had been sent running by the species they had always dismissed as useful but unimportant. 5 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council, and the galaxy barely resembled what it had been before. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the HCA Destiny, humanity's newest and most advanced diplomatic vessel. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see the planet Kepler 442b, where representatives from over 200 species had gathered for the first Galactic Assembly. A meeting of equals, not rulers and subjects. The ship itself was a symbol of how much things had changed. 5 years ago, human ships had been functional but basic, built to Council specifications and limited by Council regulations. The Destiny was sleek, powerful, and incorporated technologies that the old Council would never have permitted. Its engines were 30% more efficient than anything in Council space. Its weapons could punch through the armor of a Council battleship, and its diplomatic facilities were designed to accommodate species that the Council had never bothered to learn about. Impressive view, said a voice behind her. Chen turned to see President Elena Rodriguez approaching. The president looked older now. 5 years of reshaping humanity's place in the galaxy had taken their toll, but she also looked satisfied in a way she never had during the Council years. The old Council homeworld had an impressive view too, Chen replied. But this feels different. How so? Chen gestured toward the planet below, where ships from dozens of different species were arriving for the assembly. When I went to Council meetings, I always felt like I was going to ask permission for things humanity needed. Today, I feel like I am going to discuss things humanity can offer. Rodriguez nodded. The reports from our trade missions support that feeling. Our economic growth has been remarkable. The numbers were indeed remarkable. Free from Council trade, restrictions and profit-sharing requirements, humanity had become one of the wealthiest powers in the galaxy. Human technology, no longer limited by Council safety regulations, had advanced rapidly. Human colonies, no longer restricted to worlds the Council deemed appropriate, had spread to over 100 new systems. Most importantly, humanity had learned to use their greatest advantage. They were the only species in the galaxy that knew how to cooperate effectively with other species. The Council members had ruled through fear and domination. Humans built partnerships. Any word from the Council territories? Rodriguez asked. Chen's expression became more serious. The situation continues to deteriorate. The Hive Collective controls over 50 systems now. The remaining Council fleets cannot coordinate effectively enough to stop them. 3 more species have declared independence in the past month. Anyone we know? The Vegan Republic, the Tau Confederacy, and, surprisingly, the Krellian Empire. All of them have requested membership in our alliance. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. The Krellians were one of the older species with a proud military tradition. For them to abandon the Council and ask to join humanity's alliance was significant. What about the senior Council species? Still trying to maintain control, but their influence shrinks every month. The Altarians lost their trade monopoly when their shipping routes became too dangerous. The Zentari are fighting a civil war. Half their colonies want to join us. Even some Epsilon Republic worlds are talking about switching sides. Through the observation windows, they could see a new arrival. A massive ship with the angular design typical of Krellian engineering. But instead of the Council symbols it would have carried 5 years ago, it bore the star and planet emblem of the Human Colonial Alliance. The Krellians, Rodriguez observed. I never thought I would see the day. General Vorth says his people are tired of losing wars because of poor coordination and obsolete tactics. He wants to learn human military doctrine, and we are willing to teach them. Chen smiled. We are willing to share what we know with our allies. That is the difference between us and the old Council. We do not hoard knowledge to maintain power. We share it to build strength. On the planet below, the Galactic Assembly was beginning its first session. Unlike the old Council chamber, where senior species sat in elevated positions looking down at their subjects, the assembly hall was designed as a circle of equals. Every species, regardless of age or size, had the same seating and the same voice. The session began with a moment that would have been impossible under the old system. A joint presentation by humans and vegans on new medical technologies they had developed together. The techniques they shared could extend lifespans for dozens of different species, and they were offering the knowledge freely to any assembly member. In the old system, such valuable information would have been controlled by the senior species and sold at high prices to anyone who could afford it. In the assembly, it was shared as a gift between allies. The contrast with the old Council could not have been more stark. On Altair Prime, the former Council homeworld, Vex 9 sat in his reduced office and read reports from across what remained of Council space. Every report was bad news. The Hive had taken another system. The Epsilon Rebellion had captured 2 more industrial worlds. Pirates were raiding shipping lanes that had been safe for centuries. His assistant Dex 4 entered carrying another stack of reports. Sir, we have received another request for negotiation from the Human Alliance. What do they want this time? They are not asking for anything, sir. They are offering to provide humanitarian aid to the refugee camps on Sigma 7. Vex 9 looked up in surprise. Sigma 7 was one of the worlds the Hive had attacked, leaving millions of beings homeless. The Council did not have the resources to properly care for all the refugees, but accepting help from humanity would be a massive blow to Council pride. What do they want in return? Nothing, sir. They say it is a gift between civilized species. Vex 9 stared at the report. This was exactly the kind of gesture that was winning humanity allies across the galaxy. While the Council struggled to maintain control through fear and tradition, humans were building loyalty through generosity and competence. Sir, Dex 4 continued hesitantly, there is something else. 3 more Council members have submitted formal requests to open trade negotiations with the Alliance. Which ones? The Tau Confederacy, the Beta Republic, and the Centauri Union. Vex 9 felt his heart sink. The Centauri Union was one of the oldest Council members with a history going back thousands of years. If even they were considering defection, the Council was truly doomed. Draft a response, he said wearily. Tell the humans we are willing to discuss their aid proposal. Yes, sir. Should I also respond to their other offer? What other offer? Dex 4 looked uncomfortable. They have offered to provide military assistance against the Hive Collective. No political conditions, no territorial demands. They say they are willing to help because the hive is a threat to all civilized species. Vex 9 closed his eyes. The Mightier Council had spent 5 years trying to force humanity back into submission. Now those same humans were offering to help defend Council worlds from the hive, asking for nothing in return, except the chance to fight alongside former enemies against a common threat. It was exactly the kind of honorable behavior that the Council had always claimed to represent, but had never actually practiced. Back on the Destiny, Chen was preparing for her address to the Assembly when her aide brought her an urgent message. "Ma'am, we just received word from Earthfleet. The Hive Collective has begun a major offensive against the remaining Council territories. Their main fleet is heading toward Altair Prime itself." Chen frowned. The Hive had been gradually conquering Council worlds for years, but an attack on the Council homeworld would be unprecedented. It would mean the complete destruction of the Galactic Order that had existed for thousands of years. "What does Admiral Martinez recommend?" "She says we have 3 options. We can stay neutral and let the Council and Hive fight it out. We can provide limited aid to civilian populations, or we can intervene militarily to stop the Hive offensive." Chen thought about this. The smart political move would be to stay neutral. Let the Council and the Hive destroy each other, leaving humanity as the dominant power in the galaxy. It would be exactly what the old Council would have done. But humanity had not spent 5 years building a new kind of galactic community, just to abandon it when things got difficult. "Send a message to Admiral Martinez," Chen said. "Tell her to prepare the fleet for military intervention, and send a message to Altair Prime. Tell them the Human Colonial Alliance is coming to help, whether they want our help or not." "Ma'am, the Council never officially requested assistance," Chen smiled. "Then it will be a surprise gift, the kind of thing allies do for each other." As the assembly session continued on the planet below, humanity prepared for what might be the largest military operation in their history. Not to conquer territory or demand tribute, but to defend the principle that no species, not even former enemies, should be destroyed by hostile forces. It was a very human way of thinking, and it was reshaping the galaxy. On Altair Prime, Vex 9 stood at his window watching the sky. Somewhere out there, a hive fleet was approaching with enough firepower to destroy his world. Somewhere else, a human fleet was also approaching, not as conquerors, but as protectors. For the first time in 5 years, he allowed himself to hope. The humans had walked away from the galaxy's old order, but they had